Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
Yep, that's the big voice guy. That's Nebraska Preps Postgame. That is JP, affectionately known by his government, Jacob Padilla. I'm ODB. They just call me Damon. I don't know. As we welcome you in for another week. We had started a little bit of a series on, kind of facilities and training and taking a little break while we catch up and let some guys get back going to their regular schedules. We'll get to Lincoln and a few other facilities. So don't fret. We'll make sure that we're equal opportunity information givers. But we figured this week we'd kind of recap, maybe preview a little bit, kind of what we think will happen on the summer circuit, as you and I both firsthand experience saw the recruit looks,
Yep.
The opening to the summer with the basketball tournament.
Yep. This weekend officially kicked off the AAU season for our local teams here. RecruitLook Omaha kind of using the UBT, the Mark, and Millard North's gyms. So I was fortunate enough to hit up all three venues in my 4 games this weekend. So that was fun. But
we played at all 4 venues, so it kind of just took me there naturally, right? I there's a couple I don't love.
Yeah.
Only because you start to get longer, bigger bodies. It's tough to play at the Mark, especially on a little bit of a smaller court.
And it's usually pretty warm in there, so you worry about cramping.
It was extremely warm. And the thing about it is I didn't even think about this real time, but, one of our coaches was talking to their OSA team and saying, hey, the small court – playing to our strengths, right? Yeah. We like to run and jump, and we're a little bit quicker. And you play on a smaller court, it was playing kind of right in to the 15U's wheelhouse a little bit, but it got a little more real once we moved over to Millard North and played on a little bit bigger court and better competition. Yeah. But I really liked the setup. I thought it was smooth for the most part at all 3 facilities.
Yeah, and we were just talking before we started here, but the RecruitLook, their tournaments, first they don't do any bracket play. It's all showcase games, so you just play 4 games and you're done. It's kind of the luck of draw who you get. They try to match you up with somewhat similar teams. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. They play 2 24-minute running clock halves. Kids get 6 fouls. It doesn't stop until the last 90 seconds of the game. Yeah. Halftime's 90 seconds. Overtime's 45 seconds. It's all single bonus at 7. So certainly some interesting rules. Oh, all free throws are 1 for 2 or 3.
Hey, that's funny you say that. That came into effect in multiple games. The 1 for 2 and the 2 for 3 was huge.
And I stress that to my guys in practice this week. Like that. We got 1 shot, you step up to that line. We've got to be able to hit them this week. We didn't really do that super great, but fortunately it didn't cost us. But yeah, so it's interesting kind of rules to get started with, but it's a fun tournament for sure.
Yeah, so kind of some takeaways, at least generally speaking. I was saying to you kind of off air, 7, 8, 9 years ago, I never would have thought that some of the elite level programs would come over from Iowa, Kingdom Hoops, the Barnstormers, even Martin Brothers, right? And not have a fair amount of success. I don't know if that speaks to the level of play that's happened in Nebraska, them being on the rise, but I felt like some of those elite level programs really took it on the chin on a multitude of levels this weekend.
Yeah, and we had a handful of teams go 4-0 at various different levels from Nebraska, and they brought in some teams from Utah.
Congo.
And Salt Lake, Salt Lake Rebels. So they kind of brought in some different talent, but yeah, saw firsthand the 15s. They were up 50-something to 20-something halftime on the Barnstormers.
Yeah, well, I tell you, on the first night, on the first time out, it was 17-0.
Yeah,
and that was against Kingdom Hoops, and that was a good basketball program. It's a good basketball team, and I was just thinking to myself, either these guys are really, really good, which the 15s may very well be, or they've kind of come back to the pack. Maybe it's a little bit of both, but it's just strange what's happened over the last, like I said, handful of years with the evolution of basketball in the state of Nebraska.
Yeah, and I didn't get to see Beyond Ball or all Iowa Attack, their top teams. So didn't get to see all the Iowa teams necessarily, but yeah, it's impressive. We talked about that's why we're doing this series. Nebraska's getting better, and we've got more depth too.
Yeah, that's the thing.
The top end talent, that's gonna be the luck of the draw. You're gonna have guys like Hunter Salas and Jason Green, and guys like this kind of, and Isaac Trout, obviously, and guys like that, and Chucky Hepburn. And I don't want to leave everybody out, but I'm talking about it's kind of special players that come up every once in a while. That's not something that you can really count on, but it's the depth that the teams are lower down. Like, heck, I don't know if you want to get started with the 17 level, but just looking at
17s.
OSA Beck, saw them. They're technically the fourth team. You got Adidas, OSA Freeman, OSA Burt, OSA Beck. So they're technically the fourth team in that hierarchy. But you look at them compared to the other two national teams.
It's a toss-up.
And it happened last summer, too, where they all beat each other. And Beck's team went 4-0, and they finished the weekend knocking off Powerhouse Hoops Queen, which is the team with a bunch of unsigned seniors. And they led most of the way in that game. They controlled that action and played a really good game. The guy I was most impressed this weekend was David Harmon at Millard North.
Yep.
And he's a kid that I helped coach in 8th grade in Junior Mustangs. He was on the B team at that point. And to see the improvement that he's made over the last 3-4 years, it's incredible. And he's going to play a big role for Millard North next year with everything that they graduated.
And you could just tell how hard he's worked on his game, right? And he's been patient, right? He hasn't, at least as I can see it, being at Millard North as much as I am, there's no pouting, no sulking. He kind of understands his role, and he could have his day. You pair him with a Jason Green next year, and you get some of the young guys to maybe step up, and Millard North may have something.
And that's the thing, like you watch him play during the summer, like he is not shy at all. He's gonna cut it loose. He's gonna go for the step back three. He's gonna go for the dunks. Like he goes all out, throws it all out there. But like you said, for Millard North, he came in and played his role this past year and earned that kind of that seventh man role, that first guard off the bench where he came in, give him defensive minutes. Spelled some of the guys at the end of the quarters, get him a quick break there, and he did his role. He didn't score a ton. Nick Dolezal is kind of the same thing, and he's also on that OSA Beck team.
Another good player.
So those are the two guys that were kind of those junior bench guys this year from Millard North that going to have a chance to play quite a bit for them next year, and that playing together this summer and have a chance to win a lot of games together, I think.
Obviously, with two shoe circuit teams here in the area speaks volumes to kind of the depth that you're talking about. I felt like across the board for the 17s, the caliber of play was pretty high.
Yeah. And I guess real quick off the bat, we should probably just run through. So OSA's teams, Factory Gold teams, Hoffman's, and Powerhouse were all up here in Omaha. All the Supreme teams were down in Lincoln at the Prep Hoops tournament there. So we didn't get a chance to see either of them. Kind of was paying attention to scores and clips.
You try to
and
do the best you can online.
But obviously we were up here all weekend.
A lot of Chandler Meeks references.
Yeah.
Jay Dawson, Isaac Trout. I'm like, it's trending on my timeline. Yeah. These guys must be playing pretty well.
So, but yeah, I mean, Beck's team went 4-0. Adidas 17s went 4-0. Powerhouse, their 17s, Skirka team, they went 4-0. I think Hoffman's 17s, I think, went 3-1. So Burt's OSA Burt went 3-1. So had a lot of success. Freeman, feel bad for OSA Freeman's team. He was down to 6 guys by the end of the weekend. Came in with 3 guys that were injured. And then Logan Wilson, who is having a really great weekend.
He's got a chance to be a really good player from Omaha West Side.
Blocking 4 or 5 shots a game. He looks like he's been in the weight room. He's really filled out from where he was a year ago. Just playing, he had 10 points, 5 boards, 4 blocks in the game that I saw for them early in the weekend, and suffered a pretty tough ankle injury and was in a boot yesterday. So he's going to be out for a while. Hopefully they get a few of those guys that aren't necessarily long-term injuries back moving forward, because that's going to be you get Dane Peterson was out injured, Evan Inselman out injured, Chase Holtman out injured, and now Logan. You combine them with some of those other guys, they have a chance to be a pretty good team too if they can get healthy.
Yeah, it's interesting. Westside's going to have some decisions to make, right? He's probably got 7-8 guys that that all want to start and have some valuable minutes, and just there's only 5 guys out there at a time, and Logan presents an interesting dilemma because he's so good defensively, and his offensive evolution is happening right before our very eyes. He's become a pretty good knockdown shooter. He's a tremendous rebounder. He's very good on the weak side, really good help defense, and he gives them a lot of versatility. I was as we jump over to the 16s real quick. Actually, the 17s. Let me stay right there with the 17s just for a sec, because I think they surprised me a little bit. I wondered what was going to happen with the guard spot, with the distribution, and kind of making sure everybody's involved and doing their thing. And I came away pretty impressed with the 17s. I think of the 3, if you're talking on the gauntlet of the 17s, the 16s, and the 15s from OSA, I think the 17s probably came in with the most questions.
Yeah, and because they had a lot of, obviously they had to kind of make some moves here, figure out some roster. They had some new pieces. One of them, Hurrdat Bijek, didn't play this weekend. They brought in DeVars Whitaker from Sioux City East. Brought in Jalen Spears as a guy looking to potentially reclassify. I'm not quite sure what his plan is for next year, but senior at Bryan. You brought in Gil Jengmer from Grand Island Central Catholic. So they had a
good athlete. Still working on the basketball portion, and good athlete.
And man, the progress he's made from a year ago, like seeing him play last summer to where he is now, and throughout the high school season, that was a good addition to give him some much needed.
We have to scrimmage those guys kind of on a round robin, so we see them, quite a bit. Just the growth has happened quickly. Coach Monsters, he's done a good job with them.
Yep, and Whitaker just athletic as heck. Like
It's hard to stay in front of.
I don't even know if he's 6 feet tall, but man, he can get up and throw it down. There's him, Denair Dempsey, and Jalen Spears all threw down some ridiculous dunks in one of the games. I think it's Team RWA. And I saw, I think, their first game where they struggled. They were down at halftime and then came back and pulled out a close one. And they weren't shooting the ball well at all. There weren't a ton of guys that were making great plays. Where they were at the end of the weekend, they played so much better together and kind of seemed like they had started to figure some things out. And I didn't get to see them play against the All-Arkansas team that had the top 75 recruit, 6'10" kid. I didn't get to see that game. That was probably their best, I would say, probably the best competition. So I didn't get to see how they did in that game. But Josh Dix is still, he's the best player on that team, I think.
It's really good.
Continues to prove it. He's just steady throughout. He had 17 points, 13 boards in that first game, 13 and 7 in the second game where they were much more balanced because nobody needed to take over. He's such a good finisher with either hand.
He's efficient, right? Yeah. He'll get you 16, 17 points, and he may only need 10 or 11 shots.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of the way that you want it to be. He's very unassuming with his demeanor.
Yeah.
And even his game isn't overly spectacular in any one facet. But you're right. If I had to pick one, I would probably say inside of 4 feet, you give him a look at it, he's finishing.
Yeah.
He just does not leave those on the table.
Yeah, and I talked to a coach this weekend, and I think depending on how the live periods go and who all gets to see him, he's going to have a chance to get some high major offers, I think. I think he's right there on that borderline right now. He's only sitting on kind of the low to mid major offers right now, coming off of last summer and before that. But he's got a chance, if he plays well this year, to really boost his stock and give himself some more options.
Another one of those really, really good players that are fantastic kids as well.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Really solid guy. If we jump over to the 16s a little bit, I kind of some ups and downs with that bunch. They got off to the really good start, feeling pretty good, and then the old 1 for 2, 2 for 3 free throws started to creep up on them down the stretch.
That, and I think the key with this team, and we kind of saw it all last year, but it was tough because it was so disjointed with all the injuries. They had guys coming in and out. They're down to 6 guys at one point. They had to pull somebody up from National 1 team just to have enough bodies at one point. Like last summer was tough, but this year, like looking at the roster, it's a really solid roster. I think they probably got the 5 best players in the class in Nebraska. And then you add Price Sanford to that group too.
Sanford he's got a chance to be the tie that binds.
Yeah. And so the question is, like, the key for that team is going to be like, all right, all 6 of you guys, you don't have to be the best player on every single play. It's okay to make the extra pass, cut away, and let somebody else make a play. And I think that's kind of I didn't get to see the Barnstormers game, but talking to coaches there, it kind of seemed like that's what they got trapped into, trying to do too much.
Got a little sticky.
And I went and watched them play against Colorado Hawks with Bay Fall, 5-star, top 10 kid in 2023.
Yeah, supposed to be one of the best in the country.
And they ran them out of the gym, and it was 62-27 at halftime. Yeah. It was absurd. They were shooting the lights out.
And they felt
half.
good about themselves after that game, right? That's the kind of the ups and downs I was talking about, because I think at that point it put them either at 2-0, coming off a good win, and you're thinking, oh, okay.
And so many of those threes, drive, kick, wide open looks, and they knocked them down, and that's key. The other thing, and they were able to regroup and finish off the weekend against Mentality Gold KC, and had a few guys play well in that one too. I wasn't able to stay for the whole thing because I had to coach right afterward, but man, Josiah Dotzler. He had 19 of their first 24 against Colorado Hawks, had 22 at halftime, and then finished with 28 because they didn't really need him to score. I think he had 3 or 4 and ones in that Colorado Hawks game. Missed the free throws on all but the last one, but hit a couple of threes. Like his ability to change speeds and explode to the rim, the acceleration, and then the control to take contact and finish, to sneak past a shot blocker and still get the ball in. That's how you get those and ones where, oh, I'm going to go block this, and suddenly, nope, he's laying it in and you're hitting the arm. Like his physical development over the last year, he's just a completely different player, and I'm excited to see these next 2 years at Bell West, kind of what it looks like with him getting a chance to kind of run that show now, as opposed to being kind of Chucky's one of his sidekicks. And
it's going to be interesting because I think he's one of those guys that we were talking about earlier that if he's okay with the role, he doesn't always have to be the guy. Sometimes he's got to be a facilitator, distributor for that bunch too. I mean, when you have a Clemens, you have a Sandiford, you have a Connor Milliken, you've got options, right? And I think sometimes his feel for playing with other good players will be the next stage in terms of his development as the primary ball handler. Yep,
and hopefully with some of the pieces they'll put around him in Bell West, they're going to have some shooters, obviously, around him. They always do, but he'll have a chance to kind of develop that part of his game now with the ball more in his hands, where you kind of, all right, now I need to go score. Now I need to kind of get some of these other guys involved. Whereas it seemed like kind of playing off the ball, it's like, all right, I'm catching here. I got an opportunity. I'm going to go score. So again, I'm looking forward to seeing his development. I think Brennan Clemens was a huge addition for that team, and he's not going to score a ton of points. He's not going to put up a lot of big numbers, but the way he was battling with Fall and the other big guy on the Colorado Hawks, defensively, holding his own in the paint, just pushing him off the block, rebounding, protecting the rim. He's such a good athlete, good size. I think the offense is going to continue to develop, and they'll kind of figure out ways to get him the ball in the right spots. But
I think he's really just getting started.
Yeah.
I think from a basketball IQ standpoint, he's kind of like a kid in a candy store, and Coach King is like got a blank slate. And he looks – this weekend I felt like – and we've practiced against him, so I had a sneak peek.
Yeah.
He looks a lot more like a traditional 4 than maybe at any point that I had seen him. He was playing closer to the basket. He was good in the post. He's very good with the rim protection, really good rebounder. Like, he seemed to be really comfortable with his spots on the floor with this team. Like, I completely agree with you because sometimes, listen, people fall in love with, points and 5 of 8 could be a couple of leaky runouts and layups and loose balls, and you're not playing a good team. So you're right. Like, it's his value isn't always in scoring, but what he's going to do for that team, he may be the best addition that any of the units have had, given what that particular team needs.
Because last year you had Maul Jall playing the 5 for that team starting there. And how tall is Maul? Yeah. He's not 6'7".
No.
So he did his best, but he is battling some bigger guys all summer long. So just for, like you said, what they needed.
Yeah,
filled a big
really,
hole.
really good addition for them because I think he's going to fit right in. And I watched kind of, me, I'm a big interactions guy and how guys are going to get along because we have a lot of good players. Getting along is pretty important. And I just kind of watched him, and the kids, they've taken really well to him, and I think he's going to be a good addition for them.
Yeah.
Really good addition. And what can you say about Sanford?
Yeah, but man, I gotta give King a hard time. Like, they hadn't dropped that Barnstormers game, our OSA 16s teams would have swept the competition. National won, got it done 4-0. My team got it done 4-0. Pretty good group here we got at the 16s level, and I got to see National Lindberghs at the National 1 team play a couple of times, and man, Alec Noonan is a kid. Last summer,
talk about underappreciated. He gets overshadowed by his brother on the gridiron
field, but
really good basketball player.
And
that's it. And that's his sport, right?
Yeah.
He's out there playing football just because basketball is his moneymaker.
And so I practiced with those guys all last summer. Was around the team a lot, and Alec was a good player last year. I don't think he was one of the best players on that team, but going from where he was on the summer to being the guy that earned a varsity jersey out of a really good sophomore class, he was one guy that was up there playing quite a bit and getting a chance to experience the varsity level a little bit. And then now where he's coming in this summer, and he's double digits both those games, efficient. He's always been good at getting downhill, working that baseline and finishing. Now he's shooting the ball at a higher rate. I was really impressed with his development. And then Jackson Moore Swann is a kid that I really high on. He
kind of
really
flying under
summer.
the radar, ramping up slowly.
He just does so
up.
many things. He can get downhill, drive and kick game all day long. He got a bunch of guys open threes in their last game. Really good finisher, and he can shoot as well. So that's a really solid National 1 team, and I was impressed by what I saw from them this weekend. Going to have to step in and coach them a little bit this weekend, so going to pull double duty at our next tournament. So looking forward to that. That'll be fun. But 1 through 10, they got so many guys that are just solid basketball players.
Those twins and Maverick and Alec. I asked Danny when Elkhorn South was playing Westside, and I said, "Oh gosh, how'd you guys kind of divvy it up?" And I'm always curious about how parents do that, right? And he says, it hasn't really been that hard. One likes one sport a lot more than he likes the other, and the other likes the other. It's just kind of naturally separated itself. Yeah. And I go, gosh, must be nice, right, to have two really good players that like different sports, and there's no conflict, man. And when you're twins, sometimes you get compared to the other, but with each of the Noonans finding their niche in their respective sports, seems to be just fine. Yeah.
And I guess touch on my team real quick, just knock it out there.
Humble brag.
Yeah, here we go. But I really love this team, man. These guys are so much fun to coach. And I got 7 back from my team from last summer. We went 22-6 during the kind of abbreviated one, I think 4 tournaments. And man, these kids, they just work so hard and they play so well together. And that's that's always what you want as a coach, that kids that are doing the right things and trying to do it together. And that's what I've got on my hands. And kind of shout out to my guy, Carter Templemeyer. Another 75 points in 4 games this weekend, efficient, shooting well from 3, making some tough finishes. And Zach Grand Jeanette is a kid I picked up this summer from Millard West, and got a little bit of varsity time this year. Played a lot of JV and came out, shot 9 for 20 from 3 this weekend for me. So he's a kid that can really catch fire. So added a little bit more firepower to my team this summer, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do this year.
And then the 15s, and I guess if you had to say the 17s, the 16s, and the 15s, if you're going to look at competitive balance across the state, the biggest disparity, in your opinion, probably happens at the 15s?
I think so. I think your Adidas team they're pretty solid. Man,
it's hard to kind of tell, right? Because there's a lot of good players that are still out there. The Pekorskis, the Gaethjes. There's a lot of good players. So it's hard for me to think, okay, but it just seems like when I watch them play, and then I look at the 17s based on the amount of competition available, I look at the 16s and the amount of competition available, it seems to be a lot more balance. 15s, if it's top heavy, a lot of those kids are on one team.
Yeah, and you guys didn't even really get challenged this year. Hopefully at some point get to see Supreme because, like you said, Pokorski over there, Jacob Barope, Elijah Gaith, like they've got some really good players on that team, and some guys that got some varsity experience as freshmen as well.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of the guys on the OSA team. So
saw Pokorski the other day. He's got such good size. I don't know how much more he's going to grow, but he looks the part right now.
Good feel, good skill, just knows how to play basketball. And
I thought Martin Brothers was a good basketball team. A couple of real explosive players. Really had to make some really good in-game adjustments. But I guess, we'll see. We're in Atlanta in 2 weeks, and we'll see where they stack up nationally. But I think competitively, it's a good group.
And you got some, obviously it's real top heavy, but the national teams are pretty solid, and they had a good weekend too. You've got a lot of guys that on that National 1 team, Crouch is coaching, that played at the top level through middle school that you guys had some battles with. And I saw them play over in the weekend.
I really like that bunch, right? It's likable group. Yeah. They watched a lot of the games, like overlapping. We see them a good portion at practice. They have a lot of kids like Joey V. There's just a lot of guys that I'm personal fans of, right? Like a guy like Joey V.
And they added Alec Wilkins to that group. So you got Alec Wilkins, Joey V, Wes Frost, 3 guys that played a lot of basketball at Gretna this year.
I'm always giving Frost depth. He's so quiet. I think I drive him crazy, But I'm like, Wes, But it's a good solid group, especially with Marquise Tolliver.
And and he didn't even play in the game that I got to see.
Well, he's too busy getting track scholarships.
Yeah.
He's getting offers from Iowa State as a freshman.
Dang. But Dale Ron Thomas, with Marquise out there, stepped up. He took over in the second half of their first game that I was watching, and he had
quietly,
downhill to the rim.
Got a lot of game, and he does not lack confidence. He's very smooth. He's a really good shooter. He's one of the few that are good off the bounce and can catch and shoot. He's one of the better kept secrets, in my opinion, in this class.
So, and that's Omaha North, who started this year as a freshman. Again, gained a lot of experience for them, and will play a big role over the next 3 years. But I guess
got some poise to him too.
Yeah. What do you think about the way that Will Cooper fits in? Obviously, you got a group, a few OSA kids, you got a few of the TNE kids, and then you picked up a couple additions here and there with a Ricky Loft and a Will Cooper. I thought Will looked really good against the Barnstormers.
Yeah, he's really the thing that I like about Will is number one, he and Caleb have played together forever, right? I wouldn't say forever, but went to the same middle school. They have a really good feel for one another, and I think he's such a good shooter that when you play with those guards, they can get to any spot on the floor, and Will's IQ is really high. He can slide into open spots. Just yesterday against Martin Brothers, he and Caleb, they played a nice 2-man game for about 3 or 4 minutes that really allowed Will to accentuate his strengths where, if it wasn't pick and pop, it was pick and roll. If Caleb would use the ball screen, and then it was drive and kick, and you get the Mossers and the Jaden Jacksons, and those guys, they just really can shoot the ball. I like Marcus Glock, kind of his evolution. You let CJ and Caleb really guard in the backcourt. It's a headache, and Will is a guy that doesn't need volume, right? Like he's an efficient scorer. 12 shots, and you'll look up and he's got 16, 17 points, right? He's been a nice addition.
Yeah, and obviously we knew he could shoot. I thought he finished pretty well inside, and he protected the rim a little bit.
So there's 2, right?
Yeah.
So if they want to go where this team wants to go nationally, he's got to be able to clean the glass and finish around the rim, right? Because you're not always going to shoot it well. Yep. So sometimes you have to be able to go get something easy.
And he's the tallest on the team,
and his personality, he's so unassuming. Yeah, right. He's really unassuming, but his evolution has been fun to watch, and we know he can really shoot the rock.
So that's that 15U team. It just so many pieces fit so well together, and you would think play off of each other well. The way their pressure allow you to get out the open court, you got guards that can get downhill and kick out to those 3-point shooters, and then the way Alvin coaches them up. you're going to get max effort for all 48 minutes, I guess, this weekend.
Those first 2-3 games, they get so many easy runouts or good open looks. It's just they just make the game. They just have good feel. The practices are really high intensity, though. Yeah. He'll go shell drill for 18, 19 minutes. Yeah. And it's just like you have to be fit and you have to be willing to guard. If you're not either one of those, it's tough sled.
No doubt.
Tough sledding. Well, that's a quick recap. We went 17, 16s, and 15s. We'll be back next week. We'd like to go round robin. We may talk a little Lincoln and see what they've got coming. As you know what, it is quietly become a pretty good basketball city. They were playing a little bit catch up.
Yeah.
But they got a nice game plan going. They have some good individual training, and they don't want to take a back seat. We'll try to get to that next week if the schedules line up. That's my man, Jacob Padilla. I'm ODB. This is Nebraska Preps Postgame. We'll be back next week.
A Hurrdat Media Production.